Khaz'al bin Jabir bin Merdaw al-Kabi GCIE KCSI, Muaz us-Sultana, and Sardar-e-Aqdas, was the independent Emir of the Sheikhdom of Mohammerah, located today in the Khuzestan province of Iran. Historical background: in early 1920s, the southern part of Khuzestan, with its large Arab population, was semi-autonomous under the rule of Sheikh Khaz'al, an ambitious local Arab leader. Khaz'al was nominally under the jurisdiction of the Qajar king. In reality, he was protected and controlled by the British, whose 10,000-man army, the South Persia Rifles, operated with immunity in southern Iran. The British, without notifying Iran, were also providing Khaz'al with meager shares of the Anglo-Persian Oil Company. They even considered Khaz'al as a possible king for Iraq or for an independent principality in southern Persia. Khaz'al was also the darling of many Sunnite Iraqi nationalists, who sought to foment dissent among Iran's Arab population by referring to Khuzestan as Arabistan and glorifying Khaz'al as its independent sultan. The tribal leaders of the Bani Ka'ab, an Arab tribe which had originally come from the area of what is now Kuwait in the 16th century, had often been the imperial appointed tax farmers for the entire province for many years after the fall of the Shah. The Bani Ka'ab were the largest and most powerful tribe in the province. In the early 19th century, the Bani Ka'ab had dissolved into a number of rival clans that often clashed and feuded with each other. Of these factions, the Muaz clan, led by Jabir al-Kabi, became the strongest, and under his leadership the Bani Ka'ab were reunified under a single authority, the capital of the tribe being moved from the village of Falahiyut to the flourishing port city of Mohammerah. Unlike previous leaders of the Bani Ka'ab, Jabir maintained law and order, and established Mohammerah as a free port and Sheikhdom, of which he was sheikh. Jabir also became the imperial appointed governor-general of the province. Rise to power: after Jabir's death in 1881, his elder son, Khaz'al, took over as tribal leader and sheikh of Mohammerah, as well as the provincial governor-general, which was confirmed by an imperial firman. However, in June 1897 Khaz'al was killed. Some accounts state that he was assassinated by his younger brother Khaz'al, while others state that this was done by a palace guard under orders from Khaz'al. Thereafter Khaz'al assumed his position as Sheikh of Mohammerah, proclaiming himself not only the leader of the Bani Ka'ab, but also the ruler of the entire province. He then appointed his sons to the governorships of the various cities, towns and villages within his control, including Nasiriyah, relations with the Qajars and tribal leaders. Khaz'al established and maintained close relations with the Qajar court, who had accepted Khaz'al as the neighbor government. The rest of the province remained under the domination of Bakhtiyari Khans, Lur tribal leaders, and Persian groups. Several of the Bakhtiyari Khans, in particular, had entered into alliances with Khaz'al. The Qajar Shah made him an officer of the Sardar-e-Aqdas in 1920. The Anglo-Persian Oil Company, following the discovery of oil in Mohammerah-controlled territory, the British moved quickly to establish control over the vast oil resources in the province, which culminated in the foundation of the Anglo-Persian Oil Company in 1909. The British established a treaty with Khaz'al, whereby in exchange for the guaranteed support and protection against any external attack, he would also guarantee to maintain internal security and not interfere with the process of oil extraction. As part of the treaty, they were given a monopoly of drilling in the province in return for an annual payment to Khaz'al. Though the profits of the company vastly exceeded the annual payments, British influence in southern Persia mainly derived from the relationships which had been established between the British government and various tribal leaderships, including especially Khaz'al and the Bakhtiyari Khans, and also, though less importantly, the Qawamis of Shiraz and many of the minor Khans of the Persian Gulf littoral. Khaz'al, as an important tribal leader, was a member of South Persia Rifles, and when he asked for British support against central government of Iran, the answer was, "You remain faithful to the Shah and act in accordance with our advice." Conflict with Reza Khan. In 1921, realizing the threat posed by Reza Khan Mirpanj, who had just staged a coup d'état with Sayyid Ziad and Tabatabai, Khaz'al proceeded to take steps in order to protect himself. He attempted to form an alliance with all the Bakhtiyari, Lur, and Kamsa tribes, in order to prevent Reza Khan from gaining too much power. His ultimate aim was that through this tribal alliance the Zagros Mountains would become a nearly impenetrable barrier against the forces of the central government. However, the various tribal groups often clashed with each other and were unable to come to agreements, and his proposal failed. Later that spring, Reza Khan made two attempts to convince Khaz'al to meet him in Tehran to discuss his position in the new government. However, Khaz'al was suspicious of Reza Khan's motives and refused to go there himself, instead stating that he would send an emissary. A few weeks later, in April, Reza Khan ordered one of his commanders, who had a friendly relationship with Khaz'al, to meet Khaz'al, ostensibly to convince him to journey to Tehran. The commander, General Khaz'al al-Zahedi, accompanied by several government officials, met with Khaz'al and spent an evening with him on board his yacht, anchored in the Shatt al-Arab River by his palace in the village of Falahiyya near the city of Mohammerah. Later that evening, a gunboat sent by Reza Khan stealthily made its way next to the yacht, which was then immediately boarded by 50 Persian troops. The soldiers arrested Khaz'al and took him by motorboat down the river to Mohammerah, where a car was waiting to take him to the military base in Ahwaz. For there he was taken to Desful, accompanied by his son, and then to the city of Khorramabad in Lorestan, and then eventually to Tehran. Upon his arrival, Khaz'al was warmly greeted and well received by Reza Khan, who assured him that his problems would be quickly settled, and that in the meantime, he would be treated very well. However, many of his personal assets in Iran were quickly liquidated and his properties eventually came under the domain of the imperial government after Reza Khan was crowned the new Shah. The Sheikhdom was abolished and the provincial authority took full control of regional affairs. Khaz'al spent the rest of his life under virtual house arrest, unable to travel beyond Tehran's city limits. He was able to retain ownership of his properties in Kuwait and Iraq, where he was exempted from taxation. He died in May 1936 while alone in his house, as earlier in the day his servants had been taken to court by the police. It is said that he did not die of natural causes, but that he was murdered by one of the guards stationed outside his house under direct orders from Reza Shah.